Welcome to everyone joining us. Good evening. So good to have you. I'd like to say a special welcome to those joining us on Facebook and YouTube Live, on Love 101 Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Family time is about your issues and your relationships, your at-home family, your community family, and your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will lead to healthy nations. Stay with us, listen in, and please join in. My name is Theresa Benjamin. Summer is almost here. And after 14 months of restrictions, limited activity, many of us are itching to go on a fun adventure to somewhere exciting and new. It's time to burst through those four walls and leave all the negative pandemic stuff behind us. But with the effects of COVID-19 still causing major disruptions to our finances or overall sense of well-being and our everyday lives, it might be challenging to start thinking of planning a vacation without adding another layer of stress. Macaulay Thompson is our guest this evening, and she's here to help us to explore how possible it is to take a vacation this year without pulling out our hair or breaking the bank. But before we speak with her, here's what we want you to do. Tell us, where is your dream destination for a vacation and why? WhatsApp your text and voice notes, that is. Make sure those voice notes are no longer than 30 seconds and send them to us at 876-997-3125. You can post your comments to the Love 101 Facebook page, or you can give us a call on the studio lines, 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. And throughout the program, we'll share your thoughts. We'll be right back.
Flow is connecting Jamaica.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. Our topic today is vacation. Here I come. And as my guest and I discuss this, we want to know, where is your dream vacation destination and why? You can send us your WhatsApp text and voice notes. Ensure those voice notes are no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125. You can post your comments on the Love 101 Facebook page, or you can give us a call on our studio lines, 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. And throughout the program, we'll share your thoughts. With us this evening is Macaulay Thompson. She's a Jamaican travel blogger and content creator who currently lives and works in the United States. She shares travel news, tips, and stories via her website and online community under the brand name My Travel Stamps. Good evening, Macaulay. How are you?
Hi, Teresa. I'm really good, thanks. And
Thank
thank
you
you
for
for having me. I'm looking
and
forward to the discussion.
Awesome. And I'm really happy to have you as well. So I want to
Yeah.
start here.
Mhm.
What are some of the destinations that you've traveled to? Some of the most impactful or evoke the most vivid memories for you?
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, I haven't been to half the destinations on my list, but some of the ones I've been to that have really stamped a place up in my heart. I think South Africa, going to see where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned and hearing that whole story and hearing it from the prisoners and people who were actually there at the time was
Hmm.
very, very impactful. There's different places in South America too. I think going to Peru was one of
Hmm.
my dream bucket list destinations, to Machu
Hmm.
Picchu. And
Yes.
it took me years to get there, and it was everything I imagined and more. And then I
Awesome.
think just getting to go to some places in Europe too was cool. And we did Egypt some time ago, and just going
Wow.
into some of the communities outside of Cairo and hearing
Hmm.
them call you my cousin, because skin colors was similar and that sort of thing. You learn
Hmm.
so much from travel. I'm just a sponge when I travel, soaking up cultures and flavors of the destination and that sort of thing. Really, really fun. And of course, I always enjoy going around the Caribbean too, because even though people think it's all the same, it's not. Yes,
Hmm.
we all have beautiful beaches, but we have distinct cultures, and it's so important to appreciate the people around you as well. So yeah.
Awesome. So with you, you're a travel blogger. This is obviously something that you're passionate about. How has the pandemic impacted you from the
Man,
perspective of travel?
it's been tough. It's been tough because I haven't been on a trip since an international trip, leaving the US since December 2019. I did have to
Wow.
travel for work in February 2020, but then the pandemic hit around, somewhere around March, where we actually went into lockdown. And
Hmm.
I have been very conservative since then in terms of travel. I haven't gotten on a plane yet. And it's
Okay.
been killing me because it is my way of de-stressing. Travel is my way of like just replenishing my energy and that sort of thing. So having
Hmm.
not had that opportunity and that outlet has been
Hmm.
really, really tough. I've just had to be going through old galleries and reminding myself through video and, watching travel shows and that sort of thing to kind of keep me going.
Yeah. So I love that you made mention of how travel is your outlet and that's your stress reliever. In a way for our viewers and our listeners, how important is it for each of us to take a break, specifically take a vacation?
In my opinion, Teresa, it's super important because we're all going at different speeds and at different paces, all different stresses and things coming at us from different angles, depending on our various, whether we have family issues or we have work issues or we have financial issues. I think taking a break from it all is really, really helpful in terms of reducing those stress levels. It's
Hmm.
been known to increase your sleep habits. Studies have been done to talk about strengthening family bonds, because
Hmm.
making those memories away from your regular home environment is a way of getting people closer together and strengthening relationships.
Hmm.
In terms of work, it makes you more creative and more productive when you can take a break and come back. So employees really should insist that employees employers should insist that employees take vacation, because it does help the productivity in the long run. So many benefits.
What are some of the benefits that specifically that you've experienced? You made mention of studies indicating that it improves sleep habits, it creates a union in the family or a stronger union in the family. What are some of the specifics that you have experienced in your own life through embracing travel and
Mhm.
going
All
out
right.
and doing it?
For well, to start as for family bonding and that sort of thing. I remember I took my first trip at like 6 years old, and it was me, my mom, and my sister. It was my first international trip, and we left from Norman Manley to JFK in New York, and just the three of us together seeing those sights and sounds for the first time was just like mind blowing, and it's something I'll never ever forget. That's a trip that you can always remember. And
Hmm.
then since then, as a family, some of us, we've been to that Egypt trip I mentioned, we've been to South Africa, we've been to Martinique, Curacao together. It's just like you remember those moments forever, and things will come back to you. You'll see an ad on the news, and like we were there, and it just deepens those bonds. It's also helped me in terms of learning so much about different cultures and appreciating the things we take for granted sometimes where we live, not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that it's not as commonplace elsewhere, or just looking at new ways of doing things. And it gives you a wider appreciation of all that. And I think it's just like such a classroom,
Mm-hmm.
going and looking at buildings and architecture, or going into museums and learning all these different things. There's benefits to the mind, and then again, from a physical relaxation perspective, it always helps me to unwind.
Awesome. Changing gears a little bit. Thinking about travel pre-pandemic and what you said you haven't traveled, but based on what you're seeing, the trends that you're seeing, what are some of the things that have changed in the travel space, and what are some of the additional changes that you perceive may manifest in the weeks and months to come?
Well, yeah, I haven't gotten on a plane, but I've been watching things closely because I'm itching to get on a plane and get away. And I think just in general, there are a couple of things that have really, I think, changed. I mean, initially you saw changes in terms of, airlines being a little bit more flexible with their, cancellation dates and policies. And I think all of that is going back as to pre-pandemic levels. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, I think travel has lost some of the spontaneity that it had.
Mm-hmm.
Gone are the days where you're like, okay, there's a long weekend coming up, Labor Day weekend or Independence weekend, and you're going to take a long, quick trip. Now
Mm-hmm.
you have to do a little bit more research because there's
Mm-hmm.
country protocols, guidelines in place, and it's changing rapidly. So it's hard to stay on top of everything. So
Mm-hmm.
that, you're going to have to plan more. I think in terms of the hotels and the tourism partners industry, the industry members, they're going to have to look to do more touchless things as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's been more of a touchless experience because people are careful about touching surfaces and public spaces and that sort of thing. So keyless remote entry, those kinds of things are going to be more common.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot more attention now being paid to cleaning protocols in
Mm-hmm.
accommodation and public places that perhaps should have been there all along, but we're
Yeah.
seeing we're seeing from we saw the run on the toilet paper, you can tell that, sometimes some things don't always happen the way they should. And I think
Quite,
too,
yeah.
I think vaccination passports may be coming for
Mm-hmm.
international travel. Based on what I'm
Okay.
seeing, I think it's just a matter of time. There are a couple
Mm-hmm.
of places that are maybe doing some of that testing already, but I think that's
Mm-hmm.
coming. And I think the other thing too is that a lot of like smaller communities and neighborhoods may get more exposure now because people are looking for more socially distant activities
Mm-hmm.
and trying to stay
Yes.
away from all the hotspots and the tourist traps where you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing thousands of people coming through per day. So it may help some small rural communities get some more eyeballs.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, shifting gears again for a little bit. Um, what art in the Jamaican context? There is the perception that if you don't have a visa, you essentially are unable to travel. And I want to put the question to you: what are some of the options, and how do we remove this myth that persons may have that by virtue of the fact that they don't have the primary visa groups, basically? What are some of the options that they could potentially explore when thinking about vacation destinations?
Well, first and foremost, I say to people, you don't have to get on a plane to have a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica is a beautiful country with lots. I mean, we live where people vacation. So a
Yes.
staycation is something that you maybe want to start there. Find somewhere in Port Antonio or Ocho Rios or Negril or Montego Bay and just or go up in the hills and just get away.
Mm-hmm.
Take a couple of days and do things. Act like a tourist. Visit some of the attractions. Do some of the tours and adventures, and you'll have such a great time. You wouldn't even realize you're not on a plane. But
Mm-hmm.
back specifically to the visa question, there are yes, I totally understand there are challenges in terms of visa requirements for certain destinations. But there are destinations that you can get to on a Jamaican passport
Mm-hmm.
that you just need to research ahead of time. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
a list right in front of me, but that's something you can easily use the internet. Your listeners can check. countries that don't need, visa requirements, whatever country you have in mind, and it can let you know. And you can get around that way. I mean, I traveled on my Jamaican passport, and yes, sometimes getting the visa is a hindrance, but thankfully, knock on wood, I've never been denied. I was never denied a visa with my Jamaican passport. So it's possible. Travel is definitely possible for us. And our passport is still better than others. So don't think you have the worst passport in the world, guys. We don't.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you touched on that point. What are some of the, within the Jamaican context again, what are some of the non-traditional travel destinations that you would recommend our listeners and our viewers possibly explore?
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, a lot of people, usually when people think international trips, like especially family vacations, they're thinking of like the Disneys and, going to New York and going where you have diaspora members and family members. So Canada, New York, London are some of the places that people go to. But I think it depends. First of all, it really depends on what type of vacation you have in mind. But some off the beaten track, I mean, there are really good Caribbean countries that perhaps we would never have thought of visiting. There's Aruba, Belize. I mean, Barbados, Bahamas has some beautiful outer islands that you can actually just get some really good socially distanced time. And I think just thinking about are you into history, are you into culture? It just depends on what the family wants. There are places there, even in terms of family vacations here in Florida. You don't have to go to a big Disney World. You can go over to smaller places in the Keys and do fun stuff, especially if you have water-based activities and the family can swim. And if not, you can see a lot of wildlife over on the Southwest Coast. And, this weekend I was with my family and we were on a pirate ship. And the kids would love that. I mean, they got their swashbuckle sword and they put on the little buccaneer hat and they had this big cannon going and that sort of thing. So there are experiences. I think I just recommend your listeners, just wherever you're thinking of, type in, family activities or, tours and get ideas there. The internet is rife with possibility and there's just so much information out there. You just need to know how to search.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about budget. So we've talked about some options for non-visa destinations. We talked about some non-traditional destinations. When we get to a point where we've narrowed down a destination or probably a group of destinations, we now need to start looking at the dollars and cents, how we're going to finance it. What's the best approach to developing a budget and ensuring that we stick with that budget?
Okay, for me, I think even before you decide which destination you want to go to, you need to decide on the budget. Because that should also define what you can and cannot do. And I think budgeting for travel is something that if you're really serious about it, you automatically deduct money each month and put into your savings. So if it's $100 US a month or 5,000 Jamaican a month, whatever it is, put that away and don't touch it. And then as that money accumulates, and if you are doing that, especially like in 2020, you should have a pretty big vacation part right now because you didn't get to use any of it in 2020. I think you have to set your vacation priorities again. So after you have the budget figure and you decide on what you're going to do, what are your priorities? Are you going to go on a foodie vacation? Are you going to go to see museums and culture? Are you wanting water activities or a high adventure like a Costa Rica destination? Is it just relaxation and you want beach? That kind of helps you to determine which destination would best suit your needs. And I think, making sure you stick to that budget. And there's cost saving tips in terms of booking accommodation and airlines and things like that you can tap into to make sure you stretch that dollar as long as it can go, as far as it can go. So I think, that's kind of how I approach things. Set the budget. Set the budget for each vacation, decide on what my priorities are, and then book the big ticket items ahead of time. Give yourself longer lead times for those. If they're like must-see attractions, book those first. And then when you get there, you can look to see what other ways you can save some money.
What are, when you say big ticket items, just to be specific, what are some of the things that you're referencing?
If you're leaving Jamaica and you're going to be taking a flight, the airfare is one of the biggest items, and usually accommodations is a second. So deciding, first of all, things like what the other week are you going to fly? You can save
Mm-hmm.
money if you plan on Tuesday or Wednesday versus on the weekend when everybody else is
Mm-hmm.
traveling. There are things like that they call shoulder season, which is where it's not peak traffic. So, like if
Mm-hmm.
you're coming to Disney as a family, I mean, school goes back here like early August because they're out from like the end of early June. So
Yeah.
maybe book your trip for late August where the prices may be a little bit better, or going
Mm-hmm.
a September season where it's not like winter season or fall season, and you can get
Mm-hmm.
better prices because when the demand for a location or a venue or a hotel is high, the price is going to go up.
Yes.
So yeah, so accommodation and then hotels. I mean, the other consideration too with hotels is, you can tell if you're going to be traveling with a large group, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you may consider getting a vacation rental versus a standard hotel room because you may have to book 2 or 3 rooms to accommodate your entire family. Whereas with a
Mm-hmm.
vacation rental, you can maybe travel with another family and split a 6 bedroom house, and you're paying
Mm-hmm.
less than you would for a standard hotel room. So those are some of the things you have to, can help you to stretch that dollar and be budget friendly in your planning.
What are some of the considerations that we should have when we're planning to travel as it relates to travel insurance? To in the event that something goes awry, how do we protect ourselves, and what are some of the elements that we should be considering?
A lot of people are hesitant to buy travel insurance when they're buying a ticket because it's an additional cost. And I must confess, I've been there before too. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why I don't think I just have X amount of money to spend this weekend and I don't want to, add the travel insurance. But especially now in a time where there is so much uncertainty still around health and safety, I think travel insurance is going to be something that you really need to look into. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Most people buy to cover like luggage and stuff. That's different. You need to be able to have enough money for them to fly you out back to your country. I don't remember what the minimums are right now, but I think that's one of the things to look for.
Mm-hmm.
Read the fine print in terms of when you need to file by, how soon after you return, if there's an issue, little things like that. Any cancellation policies or anything like that. Read the fine print. It's
Mm-hmm.
always, the details are always in the fine print. So those,
Mm-hmm.
those are some of the things I'd consider. And you can get a lot of travel insurers now over the internet, which are,
Mm-hmm.
which are legit. But just
Mm-hmm.
make sure you maybe check the Better Business Bureau site to ensure that the company is legitimate and you're not
Mm-hmm.
being, taken by, any scammers or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, those are some great points.
Yeah.
Um, So, all right. In preparing for this week, I came across a phrase, and I want you to explain it up a bit for us. And that
Okay.
phrase was chase the deal, not the destination. What is meant by that? And how do we capitalize on that concept?
All right. That's something I actually have had to do with, in the last, maybe last 10 years or so, I started to do. Before you would have these dream lists of your bucket list destinations. Oh, I want to go to Thailand, or I want to go to the Seychelles, or I want to go to Hawaii, or wherever it is. And some of these places are very interesting, very cool, but very, very expensive. If it's
Mm-hmm.
not getting there, because I know Thailand isn't expensive, but the flights to get there can be, can add up.
Mm-hmm.
So I discovered this thing where you actually look at deals that are happening and then match that with the time off you have, and then hop on those deals and go off and do your vacation. So, for example, there's a website called
Mm-hmm.
skyscanner.com. You can go to Skyscanner if you have like Independence weekend coming up, and you say, all right, you're going to take a couple of extra days, so you have 5 days together or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Go into Skyscanner and say, put in where you're originating from, the airport, where the dates you want to travel, and just click everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of putting in a city or destination, then it gives you a list of locations and based on price. So you
Mm-hmm.
can look from the top 10 starting at what, $200 or $350 and decide, okay, this looks like a cool trip. Let me do this weekend. And then bam, that's another place you visited, something new. You've experienced stuff with locals, you've had different foods. It's a great vacation. But if you're going to sit down and wait to get to Hawaii, you may
Mm-hmm.
never go because it's like, oh my God, sometimes it just seems so insurmountable when you have these long trips and exotic destinations to go to. For me,
Mm-hmm.
travel travel is just fun wherever you're going. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. In this pandemic and going forward, and we're looking forward to the post-pandemic era. When we're traveling, what really should be, or what would you recommend be our focus? Should we be looking for that, as you're explaining, that travel experience and that new exotic destination, or should we be staying closer to home and focusing more on visiting family and just that short, quick getaway? Where do you think the focus should be?
To me, that's a personal decision. It all depends on somebody's context, where they're at, how they're feeling, what they're experiencing. So I wouldn't be able to say you should or you should not do this. What I can say is that it all depends. It all depends on what you want to get out of it. I think, you know, staycations, doing good quick road trips, going around Jamaica, stopping at Little OT or going to Boston Jerk on along the way, that can be fulfilling and relaxing and memorable and fun, and that's gonna keep you closer to home. Or you want to go see maybe the grandparents haven't been able to come visit or see each other. You haven't seen your cousins in over a year, and maybe visiting friends and relatives is a top priority for you. Then you take the trip to, wherever the family member is, and you'll be able to get together when it's safe and when you feel the time is right for you. So there's just, I think everybody's at a different stage of their re-emergence into society journey. And it's just hard to say this is wrong, that is right. It's just certainly a personal decision in my mind.
Okay. Okay. So before we head to a break, are there any other considerations as far as planning the trip that we should factor in? We talked about the budget, we talked about identifying the destination, chasing the deal, not the destination. Are there any other considerations that we should be factoring in?
I think, well, definitely we can't talk about travel now without making sure you do your research, because every single country has different protocols in terms of entry requirements. And, returning to Jamaica after you travel, just keeping on top of all of that, because, you hear in the news out of the UK, they were opening up on May 17th, and then there's things that maybe pull back again. So it's just a constant thing. I think that's definitely going to be something we're going to have to live with for a while yet.
Yes. Um, in terms of doing the research, what's the value? Let me phrase it this way. What's the value in engaging a travel consultant, a travel agent to assist in that information gathering and just general vacation planning?
I think if you have access to a travel agent or a travel consultant, use them. I mean, I know there are tons of good ones in Jamaica, like different ones. I don't know if I want to name names, but it's a service that is available, and they're knowledgeable. They're specialists in their field. If you don't have that available to you, though, the internet has a wealth of opportunities. I would suggest going to like the destination websites. Usually, we call ourselves the tourist boards in the Caribbean, but in the US and across, you can have tourist office of, or you can have visitor and convention bureaus. That's the kind of the same thing. And you just, or visit DC, there are different names. Just type that in and you can pull up their website, maybe even request a vacation guide. You can get those electronically. They don't have to be mailed out or anything. And go through that. And there's other vacation guides like Lonely Planets of the world and vacation guide companies like that. You can actually go pick up. And if you don't, go pick those things up and do your research that way. And of course, with it will rise of social media. There's a ton of information on social media too. So if you have travel bloggers that you like, go follow them, see what they're doing, read their blogs, see their tips, and use that as well. Because sometimes people trust information from a third-party source more so than the brand itself, because you're going to feel that, maybe if Orlando tourism office is selling something, or they're not going to tell you the real deal. So, go on a TripAdvisor and get the customer reviews and that sort of thing as well. So blogs, social media, all over the place. You can get a ton of stuff on the internet, including my website, mytravelstamps.com.
Okay, awesome. We have to head to a break now, and you have been listening to and watching Family Time on Love 101, produced by Family Life Ministries. Have you answered our question yet? We really want to hear your thoughts. Where is your dream destination for a vacation and why? You can send us your responses via WhatsApp text and voice notes. Those voice notes should be no longer than 30 seconds, and you can send them to 876-997-3125 or to the Love 101 Facebook page, or you can give us a call on our studio lines, 876-968-8327 or 8328 to participate. We're also Facebook and YouTube Live. We want to hear from you. Don't go away.
Why not fill your empty nest with a child in need of a loving Christian home? Ask Family Life Ministries about the For the Child Foster Care Program. Call 876-816-0889 today. This message is brought to you by Family Life Ministries in partnership with the Child Protection and Family Services Agency and Near Family Homes Canada.
Flow is connecting Jamaica to fiber-fast internet. Over 250 communities island-wide have received upgrades since last year, with many more to come. Flow is committed to giving more Jamaicans better internet access. And with over $40 billion invested, our network grows stronger each day. Visit your Flow store today or call 1-800-804-2994 to find out if you can upgrade to the fiber-fast experience on Jamaica's largest network.
Yummy jamboree, the yummy roll up the sweet and ties. Jam in a miggle make everything nice. Never taste nothing like this before. One bite and you are crave for more. Hey, nice, man. What a vibes with me. Coming from all of vibes is a jamboree. What a jamboree. A yummy roll me need. Yummy jamboree. Join the jamboree. Run down to the corner shop, a supermarket and hold your snack. Yummy jamboree jam roll. Celebrate the flavor. Come celebrate yummy jamboree.
Stay informed and keep up to date with all the happenings locally, regionally, and internationally. Follow My Jamaica Today on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Also check us out at JamaicaToday.com as we bring you all the information you need wherever you are, with fearless and factual reporting on politics, world news, business, entertainment, sports, and lifestyle. It's My Jamaica Today, Jamaica's first digital media house, only 3 clicks away.
Jamaica's gangs are like packs of rats. They live in filth and try and drag us all in there with rats, spreading the disease of violence and corruption everywhere. Nasty, but like a pack of rats, they can be eliminated. Rats, with your help. If you have information on gangs, call Crime Stop on 311. This message is brought to you by Crime Stop and their marketing partners, Lime and NCB.
Why not fill your empty nest with a child in need of a loving Christian home? Ask Family Life Ministries about the For the Child Foster Care Program. Call 876-816-0889 today. This message is brought to you by Family Life Ministries in partnership with the Child Protection and Family Services Agency and Near Family Homes Canada.
Bring the family back, bring it back together. Bring the family.
Welcome back. It is 6:02 p.m. You are tuned to Love 101. This is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries, FLM. FLM provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Listen out for our numbers in Kingston and Portmore at the end of this program. Remember, we're Facebook and YouTube Live, so tune into the program via the Love 101 Facebook page and the YouTube channel. Macaulay Thompson is our guest. She's a Jamaican travel blogger and a content creator who currently lives and works in the United States. She shares travel news, tips, and stories via her website and online community under the brand name My Travel Stamps. Our topic this evening is Vacation, Here I Come. We have one comment here from Facebook, which I'd like to share. And Jackie Douglas says, my trip will be right here at home. There are so many places to explore and see, but then again, the hotel rates are so high. And this is a question for you now, Macaulay. Please recommend some reasonable, good quality ones.
Boy, Teresa, that is an interesting thing. The thing is, I don't live in Jamaica anymore, so I'm not on top of all the latest properties, But I would definitely recommend looking at some travel bloggers out there. I mean, there are different people who are traveling, locally, and they can kind of give you more tips and tricks as to where exactly in Jamaica. I mean, I can kind of give you more tips on an international basis, but listen to read the papers. There are usually promotions that are happening, and that's the way you can find out about them. Sometimes these hotels and airline companies have newsletters. Sign up for their newsletter. They'll send you information and you'll get the updates on when specials are running and that sort of thing. A lot of people perhaps don't realize that there's usually a published rate at hotels, but do you call and ask for the Jamaican rate? Sometimes that's lower, you know what I mean? So it's asking about things like that. And like I said, maybe not looking for hotel. Airbnbs are good places to stay, quite reasonable prices. I mean, VRBO is another website that you can find vacation rental by owners and see. You get some really great deals through that. And again, you also think about villas, go to Duncan's or Trelawney or one of those places that have these really nice villas and get some friends. I mean, a group of 6 or something and go down and split the cost. It works out so much cheaper. And you have your ready-made crew with you, your squad. Yes. You don't need to be going out to party. You can just, have some nice get-togethers at home, play card games or have a games night or whatever. So wholesome fun.
Yes,
for the entire family. Yes.
Those are some great suggestions. Thank you, and I hope that it's answers the question of our viewers and listeners. So, question: No, we've gone through the season of planning. We've selected our destination, and we are now on vacation. What are some of the things that we need to be mindful of to make the most of that destination now that we've got there? Things like what are some of the considerations when we're selecting places to eat, activities to do, managing our money? What are some of the things we need to be mindful of?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that really, as you said, is going to factor in on, like I said early on, what are your priorities when you get there? So are you going to want to do you want to be in a walkable city where you can get around without having to pay for transportation everywhere you're going? There are some beautiful resorts, but sometimes they are far out or to the, very not near to other things. And you'd have to be taking a lot of taxis back and forth, which can add up. So I think planning your must-see attractions and figuring out where you want to stay overnight, which is in close proximity to that. And then the must-see ones, get those first. So like, for example, when I was going to Machu Picchu, you can't go up on the day of and get a ticket because they have so many people visiting these historic sites. They have to limit the amount of people who come in per day. So it's better to order your ticket ahead of time and do that. I think also when you actually get there, get a local newspaper, check the listing, the entertainment listings or the things to do listings. You may come up on a nice play or something that's happening, a little festival, outdoor festival that's free and fun in the park or something that you never would have gotten on a company website or something like that. So I always try to look through the local paper, if it's in your language, you understand, of course. But do that. And then there are things to do, free things to do, flyers sometimes from the destination marketing organization, whether it's the tourist board or the tourist office. Go to their site again and see what's happening. Plus, I want to let your listeners know of 2 websites that they can actually go to get nice tours and excursions. There's Groupon, which has is something that you can actually go and get really super discounts. My sister and I wanted to do this indoor paragliding or something the other day, and the tickets were like $100 and something on the company's website. On Groupon, they were like 50% off. So it really does pay off to check Groupon or sign up, do that. And then there's another one I heard about recently that's called Get Your Guide. There's a travel blogger who was in Mexico recently, and she was like, she did this hot air balloon ride, and she was having conversation with the people on the balloon, and they were like, oh my God, these prices are so expensive. How much did you pay for your ticket? And she couldn't speak because when she heard the price they paid and what she got on getyourguide.com, totally different. So, check out those 2. And then just, as I said, local newspaper, ask the front desk people as well. They are the ones, I mean, we went to New Orleans and so many tips we got from the front desk, like where do the locals eat? Because if you're going to the touristy spots, everything else there is going to be pricey. So, make sure you interact with locals when you travel. And I think even in terms of just saving money on like things like food, yes. So if you're going on a food trip, you're going to be wanting to have all 3 meals or whatever. But I don't do that. I mean, usually I go to a local grocery store and pick up some stuff like fruits and snacks for like breakfast and lunch, and then I'll splurge on dinner. You can save tons of money that way, not eating out 3 meals a day, because I'm telling you, Teresa, that adds up.
It does, absolutely. What are some of the fees, charges, the fine print that you had mentioned paying attention to the fine print, but in terms of these maybe add-on costs that we may not have been aware of initially, what are some of the things we need to be looking out for and be careful so that we don't end up getting these additional costs on the tail end that we didn't anticipate?
Yeah, sometimes that happens, and you really have to pay attention because it's easy to get caught, especially if it's a great promotional fare and like it doesn't say taxes and fees not included, or this is one way, things like that. But I think too, like when you're using credit cards, there's foreign transaction fees, so be careful of how often you swipe. And there are certain countries that Visa is preferred over American Express because American Express charges are higher. Things like that to bear in mind. I think when you're doing like the conversion fees, when you do like currency exchange, whether you go to the kiosk at the airport, which never ever do that. There's always the highest rate ever. It's always better to go to a local bank and change your money there, and you get the best rates that way. But in the airport, there's always those fees in terms of surcharges and commissions and all that stuff. Before you know it, the money you thought you had, you have like 70% of that. I think hotel charges too, that can add up. If you really like nice luxury resorts, there's resort fees that they slip into the bill. And you just have to be aware. And I'm not saying you're going to be able to change that if you want to stay at that property, but just be aware that that is going to be additional. There are parking fees. I mean, if you're renting a car when you go on vacation, because sometimes some people love to get award that way. There are parking fees at some hotels and others don't have. So be careful about that as well. And Wi-Fi charges, you think you live in a world where Wi-Fi would be free and included everywhere you go, but it's not always the case. And I always ask about those things up front before I actually make the reservation, because Wi-Fi is like very important to me. I use it to keep in touch with people back home and, check the internet and that sort of thing and get around. And, if you're a cruise line person, it's kind of sold as a package and you think everything is included, but people don't realize that, drinks or shore excursions are additional when you go cruising. And then there's luggage fees for airlines too. A lot of them are gotten a lot stricter on that. So make sure you know what the policies are. If there's some, Spirit, no, I don't remember which airline it is that is taking away, I think it's JetBlue, taking away overhead luggage from the basic economy fare. You're going to have to fit everything in the seat in front of you. So if you take a carry-on and you're usually used to checking a carry-on, you're going to have to think about paying extra fees for luggage. So those are some of the little things that people don't think about. And they're important because they add up.
Absolutely, they do. We have another Facebook comment here from Suzanne Beadle. It is always safe to interact with the locals when you travel. Won't you leave yourself open to scammers and so on? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's anywhere you are, there's going to be potential safety issues. Whether you're in Jamaica, whether you're in the US, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in another country in the Caribbean, I think you just have to have a certain level of street smarts. But at the same time, I don't see I've traveled solo on several occasions and I've interacted with locals and I haven't had, any issues, thank God. I think you just have to be smart about who you ask and in what settings. First of all, don't walk around with maps or looking like you're lost, because people will pick up on that. And then I always usually ask the hotel staff workers first, Or, if there's a licensed taxi driver from my airport, I usually just generally speak about what are some of the things you tell visitors when they come, things to do and that sort of thing. And then usually too, it's easy to meet other guests staying at your hotel, and you may be able to join up and do excursions together. And that way you are interacting with locals, but you're not by yourself as well. I mean, obviously you're not going to want to be asking questions at night on a lonely street or anything like that.
Yes,
So it's
absolutely.
really good to have your research ahead of time, know how you're getting from point A to point B, or have a general idea so that if things are a little wonky, you will kind of figure it out.
Okay. When we're now thinking about these exotic or non-traditional destinations, the consideration now comes to mind, how do we ensure that we don't cause offense? We're now talking about engaging in a different culture. There are different social norms. What are some of the things that we should be mindful of to ensure that we avoid conflict, we don't inadvertently cause offense, and then have these negative things manifest?
Teresa, I'm so glad you asked that, because people, again, it's all in terms of research and just doing the background work, because it's so important that you understand and respect the places you're going to be visiting so that you're not offensive to anyone. So, for example, like, when I was going to Dubai, I did a lot of research because I know the Middle Eastern culture is so different from the Western culture in terms of, and even Egypt too, in terms of dress codes. And, you can be modestly dressed in Bermuda shorts, which is not really showing anything, or, something that has sleeves or whatever. And depending on where you're going or where you're visiting, you have to cover up. When we're going into any churches or mosques or anything, you had to make sure you covered. I mean, my sister and I went to monasteries in Greece, and they actually had to, they rented things that you could actually put on if you weren't dressed appropriately. So things like that matter. Like, when I was in China, there's a personal space issue. So you have to think about those things ahead of time, making sure certain colors that you wear, which could be offensive, depending on the setting, especially, if you have work travel as well, that's another consideration too. So a lot of that information is available on the internet and on destination websites. Check it out before you go. And if you're not sure of everything, as you get to the hotel or whatever, ask the front desk, or there's usually concierge teams that help with guest interaction and questions like that. Go find the concierge desk and say, hey, I'm new to town. I just want to make sure I don't do anything that's offensive to anybody. Can you give me some tips? And you know what I found? People are so proud of their country and their home base. They just want to help you. And especially people who work in hospitality, they just want to be ambassadors for their country, and they'll be willing to help. Definitely.
Another question in terms, and this is along the lines of culture, tipping culture. In Jamaica, we have our approach to tipping, and when we are in restaurants, engaging with hotel workers, whatever the case may be. What are some of the safe things to do, again, so that we don't inadvertently create an offense by either tipping too much, not tipping at all, tipping too little? How do we navigate that space?
There are apps for that. I can't remember the names of the apps right now, but just type in best tipping apps, and it kind of tells you, depending on the country you're in, whether it's 50%, 20%, 30%. I've seen people also travel with little cards that actually have the different tipping levels included. So you can quickly ask the maitre d' when you walk into a restaurant, like, what's the tipping cut, policy here? Or check with the concierge person before you book the hotel, who would book a maybe reservation on your behalf at a restaurant for dinner that evening. Say, hey, I want to go out to dinner tonight, but what's the tipping culture here? And then have that little card, so you have it at the ready, so you're not there calculating things and trying to divide things and, looking a little awkward at the end of dinner kind of thing. So, you're right. It is a lot to maneuver and navigate when you're traveling to different currencies, different things like that. But use the internet. It's a tool that's very, very, very helpful.
Okay. I just want to take this opportunity to invite our listeners and our viewers. If you have not responded to our question yet, we invite you to do so now. Where is your dream destination for a vacation and why? You can send us your comments via WhatsApp text, that is, or voice notes. Those voice notes no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125, or you can post them on the Love 101 Facebook page, or you can give us a call on our studio lines, 876-968-8327 or 8328 to participate. We have one question here. Good afternoon. I would love to go to Canada on a vacation to see my daughter and granddaughter. Any tips for that person who wants to take that vacation to Canada?
Well, first of all, you may have to wait a little bit longer because, as far as I recall, Canada is still on a very much strict lockdown in terms of visitation. And even if you do go, I think you have to quarantine for a while or something. I'm not sure of the exact things, but yes, I was in Toronto a couple of years ago, and I have a friend who lives there. She's Jamaican, so my sister and I went up to visit her, and it was fun. I think if I'd say is go in the summer because it is cold. I went up in a January, February time frame, and I was freezing. I can't deal with I'm very much a warm-blooded island girl. I can't deal with the cold weather. And I think because they have such a strong West Indian community too, the foods and it's an international mecca, to be honest. So there's a lot of different foods and cultural backgrounds there. So you see a lot of different things. Again, I would just recommend that you maybe try Toronto to start. I've also been to Montreal, but that's a French-speaking city, and it's a little bit harder to get around because not everybody there. Most people speak English, but they prefer not to. So it can be a little bit difficult maneuvering there. So I'd start with like a Toronto, one of those provinces that have a strong English base. And the good thing about Canada is that they have good public transportation. So if you don't want to think about too much Ubers or Lyfts or anything like that, you can get around pretty well on public transportation. And they have a ton of attractions and things you can see and do.
As you
But
mentioned,
Teresa, what about you? You haven't mentioned where you've traveled or where you're looking to travel. We need to talk about that a little bit.
I've done a bit of traveling. I've done London, Singapore, Trinidad, United States, Canada. I did Belize. If you notice, I smiled when he mentioned Belize. I've done Grand Cayman. So those are a couple that I've done. I want to do some more of Europe. My next trip, all things being well, is I want to head to Germany. I'm a huge race car fan, so getting to the Nürburgring is on my list of things to do. So I'm smiling from ear to ear because you're speaking my language.
Yes. And Singapore has been on my list, but I haven't gotten there yet. So maybe off air we can exchange notes about Singapore.
Absolutely. I do want to get back to Singapore because I didn't do their F1 track while I was there. So I still want to do that.
All right. I can see what gets you excited.
Absolutely. You touched on the language situation in Montreal. How friendly are non-English speaking countries for the English speaking traveler? And what are some of the tips for English speaking travelers going into non-English speaking countries?
I've had varied experiences, but for the most part, it has been good experiences. One of the things that I don't think Jamaicans understand is that brand Jamaica is huge around the world.
Absolutely.
And you see, they may look at you at first and say, okay, maybe, you're American or whatever, or you're from some places or British. But when they hear the accent and they hear that you're from Jamaica, total 180, I'm telling you. Even people who, the Bob Marleys of the world and the Usain Bolts of the world and the Shaggies and Shelly Ann Fraser, everybody that has gone out there and raised their flag and waved it high have done us really all a favor, because when the reception changes, they roll out the red carpet for you. So language doesn't really become much of an issue in certain places, because most places where you're actually staying would have people who are multilingual, to be honest. But there are certain countries like Martinique in the Caribbean that is French-based. And honestly, I expected a little bit more English to be a bit widely available, and it was not. But I said to myself, that was a little bit presumptuous of me, though. I'm actually going to their country. I couldn't expect them to be. English is not their main language. it's not really something that you really should expect. I think doing a little research in terms of getting a few key phrases, knowing how to say a few phrases, I mean, how to find the bathroom, or good morning, good afternoon, or thank you, or how to, if you like souvenir shopping, learn a few phrases ahead of time, and that's always a cool thing to have. Google Translate works on your phone as well. I mean, I did a little Spanish. I mean, I did Spanish up to A levels, to be honest, but it was years ago and I haven't used it. So I can get by on a basic level. But when I was in Colombia, there are a couple of things I kind of had to piece my way through with Google Translate, and it works. As long as you have that free Wi-Fi connection without hidden fees, use that stuff. It helps
Okay,
you.
we have one more comment here. One more question. Good evening. I would like to go to the Bahamas for a vacation. I have never traveled out of Jamaica. Is there any tips on that?
Okay, I lived in the Bahamas for 2 years because I went to the College of Hotel and Tourism Management. So Nassau was home base for 2 whole years. And it's a fun place to be. I think it would be good to, you normally would fly into Nassau, I think. But there are other islands, outer islands, that are more pristine in terms of the beaches, less hustle and bustle. Like the Abacus as islands are some of the, neatest places. The water there is just, impressive. And I think making sure you, again, talk to locals, get some, local experiences in there. Do a lot of, there's a lot of island hopping that's available. In some of the outer islands, they even have, water taxi services and water shuttles. So you don't have to own a boat to go and have a good time island hopping. Pack a picnic lunch on a couple of days and go out and spend the day. And definitely you need some conch salad up in your life, and some guava duff, which is a dessert that they have. Try those things. And I think you should go. Definitely go to the Bahamas. It's a great place to visit.
Awesome. We have one more comment, which I'd like to get in before we head to wrap. I want to go to Ghana. I also want to go back to Paris, France this time, but I really want to explore the Caribbean. What's the best way to approach this? And I would love to go zero in on the Caribbean, because we as Caribbean natives, we tend not to explore the region. What are some tips you would have for exploring the Caribbean, whether it be the Eastern Caribbean islands, but exploring the region?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just say break the mindset that it's just like Jamaica, because it's not. There are similarities, but there are differences. And a lot of people use that as a barrier and don't go. Secondly, it may be a little bit pricier than going to the US, because unless it's a direct flight, you can get to Cayman from Jamaica. You can get to some places from Jamaica, but sometimes you have to go through Miami. So that means you're going to have to plan in advance, because you have to make sure you can get the connecting flight when the rates are best. I think also opening up to seeing new things, in some of these countries. And also, I think planning the trip accordingly so you can maximize your time there. So, for example, that last trip I mentioned when I went out of the country in December 2019, I went to like 5 places within a 10-day period. So we flew from Florida to, I think it's St. Martin. And then from St. Martin, we took a ferry over to Anguilla. So we stayed in St. Martin for a couple of days. And from St. Martin, we took a ferry over to Anguilla, and we stayed there. And then from Anguilla, we took trips to Saba, which is another Caribbean country that had a good history of, interesting history of tiny country, I think like 2,700 inhabitants. We also went to St. Bart's, and all of this was by boat. So you don't have to actually, the inter-island connectivity when you're in certain regions is a lot easier. Another year, my sister and I went to USVI in St. Thomas. We flew into St. Thomas, and we took the ferry over to the British Virgin Islands, to Tortola. And you can see other islands that way very cost effectively, because the price to the US, I think I got the trip on Skyscanner to USVI, to be honest, and I don't think we paid more than maybe $300 at the time. And then when you take the ferries into Ireland, it's a lot cheaper than hopping on a flight.
Yes,
So think
absolutely.
about that, grouping the islands and trying to see more than one when you're there, because
Hmm.
it's the one price of the airfare, and then
Hmm.
see what's around there.
Okay. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I would like to say a special thank you for joining us and sharing this wealth of information. And thank you to you, our viewers, for being here with us as well. If you have personal questions of your own, please give us a call at Family Life Ministries. For our center in Portmore at 117 Cecile Avenue, give us a call at 876-939-7917. And for our other councils across the island, give us a call at our head office at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101, and we will connect you. Remember, listeners, if you or someone you know would like counseling on dealing with any issue in the family, relationships, or just everyday life, please give us a call at Family Life Ministries and speak with our counselor. Note that appointments can only be made by calling the offices. To keep up to date with what's happening with FLM and our programs, you can find us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries, on Instagram at FLMJA, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLMJA. But before we leave, here are this evening's verses. And it's Psalm 121, verses 7 and 8. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. I'm Theresa Benjamin. Please join us again next week at 5:30 on Love 101 or Facebook and YouTube Live via the Love 101 Facebook page and the Love 101 YouTube channel for another informative program. Thanks again to our very special guest, Macaulay Thompson. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, Open Door Communications, our studio facilitator, Neeson Williams, and of course, you. Stay well, stay safe, stay blessed.
Why not fill your empty nest with a child in need of a loving Christian